A world still little known and understood, even in our nuclear age. What you are about to see is the beginning of a voyage through space and time. A voyage which reaches from a launching pad at Cape Canaveral to the most distant star in the heavens. This is a world full of unexplained mysteries and visitations. A world of flying saucers and